Welcome to the Pink Lady Posse podcast, Women Who Refuse to Disappear. You are either creating your life or living one you inherited. Friction management. It matters because breakthrough is your way out of drift. See the drag? Return to say, let's go. I'm Sandy Parker Martinez with the Pink Lady Posse podcast, a podcast for women who refuse to disappear. And I am so happy to be with Miss Community, Barbara Kelly. Hello, Barbara.
Hello.
Welcome. I was just telling her, so my husband's a pastor and we moved to Blooming Grove, and I'm sort of rooting around Facebook and looking to see, what I might want to know. And this woman kept showing up and showing up and showing up. And I thought, okay, Barbara Kelly is a name I want to remember. So tell me, Barbara, are you from Corsicana? Have you lived here a long time? And how did you get the name of Miss Community?
I I can say I have lived here a long time. I didn't per se grow up here. I didn't come to Corsicana until I was in high school. So back in the 80s. And so I'm from Corsicana. I just say I'm from Corsicana now. So but how do I get the name Miss Corsicana? It's because I have always been a person that loves to be involved. And I just have always been the person that wants to be embedded in change. I've been a change agent. And so that's how I got the name Miss Community.
Now, the first time I saw you on Facebook, you were walking with a woman, an older woman at the YMCA. So, do you work out there, or how do you stay healthy? Because you said health is one of the most important things, right? Tell me about that.
So you just, not like I'm this, health fanatic, but I know that as I age, movement has got to be really a part of the health journey when it comes down to getting older as, a woman. I'll be 60 in September. So I do recognize that you have to move every day in order for you to keep going, your bones to keep going. And so that's basically when I say being healthy, because, as you get older, things change with your body.
Yes, they do. And you know what? One of the reasons women die over the age of 60 is a fall. So being really able to sort of steady yourself and move without risk is super important. Now,
Yes, ma'am.
I've seen you getting money at the church from funds they raised for what, Boys and Girls Club, or what in the world was that about? I can, well, don't worry, we can edit this part out. But you were standing in the front with Leslie Coven getting money.
Yes.
Well, and that was that for the Boys and Girls Club?
Yes, ma'am. Because I'm actually on the advisory council with Let's Go and the Boys and Girls Club, and so we do have our annual fundraiser, and of course our club, our local club. We have our kids that go there, and so we raise funds to help the club, run, and then help our young people with scholarships and stuff like that. So that's one of the organizations that I serve on, and that's what let's go with.
Well, now let's just list all the things you're involved with. I know you're on the Main Street board.
Yes, ma'am. I'm on the chamber board. I'm on an organization called Meeting House Revival, which we are working on restoring a historical black church, which was a CME church building. And so we're working on getting that building preserved, restored. And then I'm on NAACP. I'm on a couple of other things, but I was on the school board for 15 years. And so now I'm just mainly just trying to keep Corsicana, keep Navarro County moving.
Now, I know you said it's important to pick your battles. Now, what does that mean to you? Pick your battles.
because some things you just cannot, you can try to change it, but then it's like, is it really worth the stress? And so, especially when you're trying to get people, I used to always say, they have to want to know, they have to want better, talking to, just talking about, something. And so I used to have a mentor, and she used to say, well, how do you know they're better? That is their better. Your better and their better might not be, what you think is, you, you, your better and their better is two different, it might be two different things. And so, who am I to say what's better, And so I've learned that, you learn how to just pick and choose your battles. If that's where you want to be, oh, it's okay. I can't make you, and it is what it is. And so I've learned just to not stress over things and just kind of let go and let God, because I'm like, we all have a different um time and all that. Some move quicker than others, and so it's kind of like it's okay. And so that as I get older, I just realize that I'm like, it's your choice. It's all about a choice, and so that's where I'm at now with, I guess, as I age, like.
Well, and you're probably like me. I'm sort of a mover, shaker, get it done.
Mhm.
Not everybody's moving and shaking and wanting to get it done.
Mm-mm. And then you just have to be okay with that. Like, it's okay. It's like you just cannot make people you know, do what they don't want to do. You just can't, And so now I'm just kind of like, I'm on this track now where it's all about the grandkid generation, my grandkids, making sure I'm doing something to make sure that they have a good space in the in the society, and making sure we make, we leave this in a good, is better condition, that a better condition than what we had. And so that's where I'm at now. I'm just thinking, focusing on the grandkids now, because I'm like, if you're a grown adult, hey, it's on you,
Well, and I know that you've seen, as I have, organizations when, as people get older, they're not the young people coming up to take the place of
Yeah.
what we assumed was going to be leadership. So that's where your legacy becomes so important, where you can make a difference with the next generation, right? I think that's important to you.
Yeah, it is important, because I've talked to some young adults earlier today in the park, and they're the generation that they're my older kids' generation, and I try to explain to them that the baton was passed to me, and then we're trying to pass the baton to your generation, but they're not wanting to take it, and so it's making my generation stick around longer. And I'm like, trying to get them to understand, no, that's not how it's supposed to be. And so now I'm being intentional. I told them I'm being intentional about pushing them into their roles, because now they're seeing that it's not, they got to get in position, and so it's just been like getting them to understand that there's time and a place for everything. Of course, there's seasons, and that's why I believe in term limits. That's why when it was my turn, I served on the school board for 15 years, and I'm like, I didn't want to be a school board member that was on the school board for 20 and 30 years. I'm like, no, and so I took myself off, and so I think that's where we just have a community, a society of people that don't want to give up the roles. And I'm like, y'all, that's not how the cycle is supposed to be. But
Mhm.
we got to do our due diligence in making sure that we are training up the next generation. And that's why I'm like really intentional about pouring into the young adults. Like, I get it, y'all can't be leaders. Sometimes they don't know that they could be a leader. Sometimes we just haven't done a good enough job to make them feel valued, make them feel like they have a voice. And so that's why I'm being intentional about letting them know, yeah, no, y'all have a voice, because y'all, the next generation behind you, they are more apt to, uh, be engaged with you, because I'm the older generation like that. And so that's why I'm being intentional about really encouraging them that, hey, walk into your position, walk into the, take the baton. I'll be there for you. If you have any questions, I'll be there for you. But y'all have to step into your roles.
Well, I know that you feel like you have a voice and you use your voice, and you pick and choose your battles, but you also pick and choose what matters to you.
Quick question. Have you noticed how easy it is to drift through this season of life? Not unhappy, just slightly checked out. Yeah, that. At Think Pink, we don't fix women, we help them come alive again. Honest conversation, easy occasions for discovery, no duct taping a smile over burnout, no reinvent your entire life by Tuesday. Just people who care and gentle nudges that help you feel like yourself again. I mean, the truth is, you can't be your best self by yourself. If that sentence made something in you nod, we made a free Think Pink starter gift just for you. Come take a look. No fixing, just connection. Go to pinkladyposse.com and click on Think Pink. Stay awake to your own life and not alone.
And you pick and choose your battles, but you also pick and choose what matters to you in terms of where you want to serve with the time you have, because I know you are a servant spirited person. And what does that mean to you that you invest yourself in what matters?
Because I believe, I truly believe I'm a servant leader. I believe that I know what my purpose is on this, in this life. And so I'm just, really once again being intentional about just using those gifts and thanking God for the gift that He gave me because for a long time I wrestle with that. I'm like, Lord, why are you pushing me into this direction? And so now I'm like, I'm resting now that hey, this is my gift, and now I have to make sure that I'm doing the right thing and pouring into the next generation and making sure that I do a good job of that. So and people and they see me, the community sees me as that. That's why I get phone calls, Barbara, I know and blah 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 and all that stuff like that. So that's just I'm a servant leader. You know.
You are. Well, and I heard one time that leadership is something that a group of people give to us. Like, I'm not seeking to be a leader, but in places where those around me have given it to me, I feel gratitude. I feel like I have the opportunity to make a difference.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I've had so many, adults before me pour into me, and I've taken the tools that they have, given me. I've taken them, put them in my toolbox, and learned from a lot of different, organizations and stuff like that. And so, hopefully, the tools that I have, I can take those same tools and pour into the next generation of leaders and all that, because I don't want to be that selfish kind of leader that doesn't want to do that, doesn't want to pour into the next generation of leaders. And so I've had some really good role models before me, or I call them real models, but I've had some really good ones, some good mentors before me.
Well, tell me a little bit about this church because my husband's a pastor at a Methodist church, and your church used to be viable and vital and now is a beautiful building, right? And you're trying to restore the building. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's Wesley Chapel CME church building. It's not a functioning building. And several years ago, it was actually on the auction block. They were gonna auction off the building and probably eventually tear it down. The city had it. It was, boarded up. It was an eyesore, and it went through a transition of, it wasn't an operating church, and so then it ended up shutting down, and so the city was going to tear it down, and so there was uh, some community members that saw the value of the building because it is doing a bit of research. They saw that it was a historical building, and so they were about preservation, and so that's how I got pulled in. They being from Corsicana. And sometimes when you're from a community and you just kind of like just so used to seeing things, it doesn't really like you don't really see the value. And so they made me understand about preservation and how important it is to, preserve a lot of, preserve your history. And so then I started really looking at the building and I started realizing, oh my God, that's our history, And so I got on the bandwagon with helping to get the building, and we were able to get it off the auction block. and get a deed drawn up and stuff like that. And so now our job, we got it on the National Registry. It's protected now. And so
Yay!
we took out right now that we took out had the stained glass windows taken out so we can get those restored. And so now the hard part is getting the money to restore the inside of the building. And so hopefully we can get it done. Get it done. I don't know how long it's going to take a while, but that's the part now is just preserving the building and trying to maintain some of the history on the east side of town, of Corsicana.
Yeah. Well, and it's something to restore a part of the legacy of the city that's so easy to overlook because it isn't being used and it isn't vital that it's easy to just be a sleeper and getting it off the auction block and saving that historical building and getting on the National Register is a tremendous accomplishment, is it not?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, it is. And just hearing the stories of the church and how, when it was up, when it was the original semi church building, how people came from all over the United States to work fellowship at the church and just hearing the stories and stuff like that. And so that is something that you really, because what we're going to do is once we do restore it is we want it to be like a meeting house where it has some of the artifacts and, some of the history pieces where people can go and just kind of, go in there in the building and just kind of do some research or whatever, however they want to, whatever they want to do with the building. But it's just that's the important piece of it is just restoring, keeping that history because there's a track of churches in that area where they were all like the churches of, the beginning churches where that's the churches where a lot of the slaves built and, stuff like that, and so that's why it's so important to preserve a lot of those buildings. Don't let them tear them down.
Don't let them tear it down. I think that's so true, and it's so important, but it takes some effort. Have you seen people step forward? Now, I think you were telling me about an attorney that stepped forward or people that have stepped forward to rally around you?
We have a yes, ma'am. We have a board, and so they're real intentional about doing preservation. Like we have Ron Siebler. Ron Siebler is a big time preservationist in Dallas, and so he has done a lot of work in Dallas in restoring a lot of the historical buildings in Dallas. So we have him on our board. So he's one of the people that we look to for guidance and stuff like that. And so we're glad to have him part of our board. And then we have Nancy Rebel. She also does a restoration. She's awesome. She's a good artist and stuff like that. And then we have our executive director, Dr. Alicia Harris. And so Nancy and Alicia really were one of the ones that were really like, made us, kind of like drew me in because they fell in love with the building when they first started because the building was boarded up. It was boarded up. And like I said, it was an eyesore, but when they saw the building and they saw that it was a historical building, they saw they saw the year it was built, and then that's when they got on the bandwagon and hey, we need to get this building and not get them to tear it down.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you this. How many women friends do you have that are your similar age?
I have classmates. I have classmates, and we're all like my high school classmates. We all stay in touch, and so we're just like that. Like we just stay in touch to keep up with where we are in our life. And so I'm not really like, oh my God, I hang around a lot of, I'm not really like that. So I just have a lot of acquaintances, I guess, acquaintance. And then I just have those that I went to high school with that we still stay in touch because we have a pretty close class.
Well, and you were talking about mental health. And one of the areas for women our age is that we stay in conversation, we stay in collaboration. We don't let our mind get lazy. We keep in conversation in community. We need each other. And but you have to be intentional with that also. You can't just assume you're going to have the conversation. So, what is the most interesting conversations you have on a regular basis?
Well, like today, one of my classmates, we were talking at the park this earlier, and we were talking about marriage, and we were talking about like they've been married over 40 years, I guess, and she's my classmate, high school classmate. She married kind of right out of high school, and then we were just kind of talking about how how we were like like marriage, and we was talking about how we was she's a minister, and so we were just saying how about the vows and how all the stuff like that. And we was just, just like we was just saying, these younger people, they don't understand when you talk about, getting married, how the vows and blah, blah, blah. We was just saying that. And so we was just kind of like, I've been married over 20 something years and they've been married. And so I was just saying, we was just kind of had that conversation, like, these younger people, they don't understand, about, honoring your vows and stuff like that. And so that was just kind of like a conversation where she's my age group, and we were just saying that the next generation after us, they probably won't be married as long as us, like that. And so we were just kind of having that conversation earlier today.
Well, I have my people that I trust, and I have my people that I will share things with that I don't share everything with. But it's important. It's so easy to just get sleepy. And so I just did my TED Talk in November, and it was about you can choose to have a great reveal for the rest of your life or a long decline. And one of the ways to keep your life a reveal is, like you said, don't be afraid of change.
Yeah.
Be very specific about what you take on and then get after it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, I kind of, I guess for me, my biggest change was a few years ago. I had been in law enforcement for 35 years. I had been a police dispatcher, and I had realized I didn't want to be that worker that was on this job for like forever and work themselves to death. And so I finally decided, hey, I've done this for 35 years, Barbara. Even though I wasn't like that retirement age, I was like, you want to protect your mental health. You don't want to do this job where it's like you stay on it till you just die. And I was just like, okay, you have to realize you cannot do this job forever because of the stress level and all that stuff like that. So I decided, you know what, 35 years is long enough, and I was done. And when I realized in my spirit that, hey, Barbara, you've done all you can do, it's time to walk away. So and I just chose to, and you talk to some people like, Barbie, you wasn't old enough to retire, and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, at some point, all money ain't good money. And at some point you gotta protect your mental health. And so I decided to give it up, and so I just said, Lord, whatever the next chapter is for me, you'll take, for one thing, you'll take care of me. I'm not worried about that. I just like I want to be okay with me mentally, and that mental thing is very important to me. And then just that health wise, like that. And so I just made a big choice. I just made a choice, and I felt like it was a good choice for me. But I don't worry about the other part because, like I said, I'm just not a big money person. I just want to make sure that I'm healthy mentally and mentally, physically, spiritually, and I'm good.
All right. So we're going to wrap this up with, I want to ask you if you were going to say one thing to me or any woman listening to this, and you would say, hey, sister, listen up. I want to tell you one thing. What would it be?
Just be okay with who you are. Don't try to be like somebody else. Because I think, with our younger people, especially with social media, they try to keep up. They see people on social media. A lot of times that's not real, and so you just want to just say, it's okay. Just be who you are. Don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses, and you will be fine. Just be at peace with whatever, just be okay. And so I mean, that's all I can say is, and you learn as you get older that it's really not all that. It's really not, so.
Well, and it's such a waste of time to try to be somebody you're not.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
I
ma'am.
mean,
I'm like, it's too much energy. That's too much energy for me. I'm just like, that's just too much energy.
well, one of the things I know about you, Barbara, is that you are a true person, a good person, and you put yourself right where you think it matters. And that makes a huge difference to Corsicana, or you wouldn't be Miss Community.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad you could make a way, and it's great to see you.
Okay, well, you take care of yourself.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Pink Lady Posse podcast, where women go from what now to what's next. Come join us at pinkladyposse.com, where we share community, resources, and tools to support your next beautiful chapter. With love, light, and a little lipstick. See you next time.